Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me at this 11th National Summit in the presence of such august gathering, not only led by our regulator, Mr. Sharma. I'm particularly pleased to see a very young minister from Haryana. Also very intrigued to see that he heads both finance and industry. And therefore, it's really heartening because all this talk about digital India and inclusive growth, it's not about just DOT and regulator and the central government and the private players. I think the states have to play a very, very important role. And having a young industry and finance minister from a very prominent state of India, Haryana, I think does wonders to this program. Thank you very much for being here. I think the topic for today's deliberations, the e-governance and digital India, I see it more in context of what is the line underneath that, and that's the inclusive growth. Because unless it results into inclusive growth, I think it doesn't really serve the purpose. That truly makes this journey very fascinating. I'm here to speak on behalf of telecom industry, the private players. As you can imagine, this is one topic which is of intense debate and discussions between the private players. And what I'm going to very briefly talk about is a kind of consensus among the private players as to what is the industry's understanding on what is digital India and what is e-governance, and most important, what role can the private sector play in achieving the objectives behind these initiatives. So digital India, as I see on behalf of the industry, really to us consists of four pillars. The first one is connecting all Indians at every level, at every geography, deep into the country, rural areas, to internet. I think that is the first pillar of digital India. The second is connecting the entire government machinery, starting from south and north blocks in Delhi, right down to the Gram Panchayats, every agency, every department, every associate of the government, PSUs, everything connected on a digital highway. And that has to be, of course, on a secure intranet. The third would be connecting the front-end data collection, the front-end applications being put in place to this intranet to provide things like this online security, the real-time analysis for the purpose of revenue protection and revenue generation, curbing black money, and so on. And finally, a big pillar in terms of our future, in terms of the future of the country as an attractive investment destination, will be smart cities. In terms of e-governance, I think two things one would look at is, one is from the point of view of citizens, and there again, one is governing their own lives better by connectivity to internet, having access to information that concerns them, having access to entertainment. I mean, it can be used for many purposes to enrich their own lives. And second piece out of that is how the government gets connected to each of these citizens. We are all aware of the tremendous success of Aadhaar, the unique identification program. The architect is here. I think, I'm sure in his address, he would talk about that. But that's one major factor which will connect the citizens of India when they get connected to internet to get all the government support, passing on all the information about government policies, the various schemes the government does, for instance, schemes like micro-insurance, e-banking, health, your safety-related items. I think that piece become very powerful. And of course, the direct transfer of subsidies which the government has already started. The second piece on e-governance is about the government itself. I think real-time transfer of information on the various policies, the initiatives, and the projects being undertaken by the government of India, right down to the grassroots. And that's where I think the digital connectivity of all government departments is going to be extremely important. And the reverse path of getting real-time monitoring of how these projects and these schemes are progressing with very robust management information systems which are already prevalent in the government of India. I think the industry is also very clear that both the industry and government have very complementary roles to play in this. For example, when we say about connecting every Indian citizen on the last mile to internet, we all realize that the only way this is possible in a country of this size is through wireless. The government has already done its bit. It has done the auctions. We have got the 3G spectrum all over the country. And I think the most feasible and the most practical way of immediately achieving that is by spreading 3G networks, for which the ecosystem is very well developed right across the country. I think that last mile connectivity of connecting every Indian to internet through 3G is something, it's a journey already underway. The second piece is where I think government and the industry are collaborating and will have to collaborate, is the optic fiber connectivity to Gram Panchayats. You know, the Bharat networks is a very ambitious and a very wonderful program undertaken by the government of India. I think that's one collaboration between industry and government which will go a long way, because we do have optic fiber as private players down to perhaps the district headquarters and beyond, but not connected yet to the Gram Panchayats. And I think as the traffic grows, if we can get easy connectivity to this particular network in terms of transmission from remote parts of the country, that would really help this particular purpose. The third is, of course, the IT support. India is the IT hub. I think in terms of all this, whatever is needed, that would certainly be done. The industry's commitment in participating in this program, I think we can say with a hand on the heart that we are absolutely committed. The industry has already, as you are all aware, in the last 5 years, invested 300,000 crores in the various spectrum auctions. And that is a very clear indication that this industry is prepared to invest whatever it needs to achieve this. One area which has been in talk, I think, is about the quality of service, mainly in the principal cities, and that too in the most dense business areas. I think we are acutely aware as operators about it. There is absolutely no shying away from responsibility on this. There are serious problems and issues. I think the industry had a very wonderful meeting with the honorable regulator yesterday. And I think this is a dialogue where obviously at the end of the day, these have to be improved, and we are, as an industry, absolutely committed to it. I would like to reassure that there is no conflict of interest here. The industry is not interested in making an extra buck out of this misery of the people. We are also, there is no conflict, because the industry not only loses reputation, it is losing tons and tons of revenue, because almost the entire revenue is on a per second billing. There is no question of the industry making extra money on this. It's a common problem, and I think from this podium, on behalf of the industry, I would like to assure that this industry will invest whatever it takes. Having invested a big chunk of 300,000 crores in spectrum, there's absolutely no shying away from any investment needed to improve this quality of service. We would be working with the government on this, and I think their support is very important. We will also, and have been working with the content providers. One of the points raised by Anu was that the local content is important. I think industry is working with the content providers to ensure that the relevant contents go to the citizens. The government support, I think a lot has been always said about what support we need from the government, but let me first start by saying the support that the government has given us, particularly in the last 15 months. Now, one is, of course, you are aware of the spectrum auctions. I think spectrum is the lifeline of this industry. But let me particularly point out the support given on the passive infrastructure side. I think we are all aware that the quality of service is a two-way street. One is, of course, because of spectrum. The second is about non-availability of sites. I think we are all aware of it. I don't have to repeat that. But the support we have got from the government on this is, I would say, absolutely exemplary. I mean, let me point out a few things. First of all, DOT has come out with the guidelines on the recommendations of TRAI earlier. They have given guidelines as to what the tower policy all across the country should be. They have also taken now a legal stand before the courts that centers would have a right to mandate these guidelines. I do not know, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how good or bad that stand is. But I think this just completely conveys the intent of the government, how serious they are about this particular issue. The second piece is what is even more heartening. The minister personally has written letters to all state chief ministers. He has written letters to the ministries asking them and requesting them to provide the government premises for giving sites to the industry as the infrastructure providers, and on behalf of TAIPA, which is the Tower and Infrastructure Providers Association, I can commit that whatever is provided to us will immediately be opened up to the entire industry, all the service providers on a completely non-discriminatory basis. I think a couple of areas where we do need to step up our working with the government. Number one is we need to really work with the state electricity boards, because that's one area in this entire piece, somewhere it has got left behind. This industry needs electric connections on priority basis and on industrial rate. We don't want any other concessions, but please treat it as a priority industry. It's an infrastructure status industry. We should jointly urge the Ministry of Energy and the state electricity boards to provide that. I think for achieving this objective, massive investments will be required. Again, we don't want anything in terms of subsidy. That's not feasible. But I think this industry is one industry which deserves tax-free bonds to be allowed, because that would go a long way in getting the funding for this very vital industry. And finally, I think the third piece could be a support from USO as we go deeper into the country, because the USO funding is meant for rural connectivity. In summary, let me reiterate on behalf of all my colleagues in the industry an absolute and unconditional commitment to achieve the very laudatory objective laid down by the Government of India and the Prime Minister for inclusive growth through digital India and e-governance. We will do whatever it takes. We are ready for all kinds of investments. And as infrastructure provider, we would like to assure that India has already adopted a very pioneering model. We will continue and provide that